Hi, I'm Shannon and I want to welcome you to my first ever webinar, From Heels to Boots, how a red chair, horses, and some courage changed my life and can change yours too. Thanks for taking the time to listen in today. And before we get started, I just want to remind everyone that we are recording this webinar. All right, in today's webinar, you are going to learn about the space of red chair and how red chair can help you be a better leader and help you work in better harmony with the people that you lead. You're going to hear about how horses help us become better humans, because I do believe that better humans are better leaders. You're also going to be challenged about how you can use your gifts and talents with clarity and confidence in all aspects of your life. And you'll see how Red Chair provides a trusted space where I share my leadership journey and invite you to do the same. So a little bit about me. I am the founder, the lead coach, and the lead mare of Red Chair Coaching and Red Chair Ranch. I've had a really great career. I've had great opportunities and interesting roles, and I've worked really, really hard. And I earned my way into the C-suite of a large crown corporation here in Manitoba, Canada. I walked into my office one day and had a very significant gut moment. And that gut moment was telling me that it was time to leave this role. After some processing and a few months later, I chose to leave and went to another role, which I thought was going to be the next thing. What I learned fairly quickly was it was my jumping off point and not my landing point. So in essence, it was a bit of a brief pit stop. After that, I went on to do my professional coaching certification through the College of Executive Coaching out of California. It was a great year of learning, of thinking through what I had done as a leader and how I could bring that forward to help particularly women in roles of influence and informal leadership. And over the course of that year, I found myself on the deck of my parents' cottage one summer. And in front of me were these two red Adirondack chairs. And I had another significant gut moment. I don't know where it came from. And as I looked at these two chairs, what came up for me was that they really symbolized the coaching partnership. And as a professional leadership coach, as an executive coach, basically you sit side by side with your client as they look ahead in front of them, when sometimes the waters are calm and sometimes they can be rough. And as a coach, you walk alongside, you sit beside, and you support the individual as they figure out their path forward. So I asked my husband to take a bunch of pictures of these chairs, not really knowing exactly how they were going to factor into my work. And over the course of the next couple of months, what I came to realize was that Red Chair really was an acronym and was going to provide the philosophy of how I was going to approach coaching. And that red chair is really an invitation to come and reflect with purpose, embrace what you see, hear, think, feel, and then decide and take action. And when we're in our red chairs, we choose to be courageously curious, honest, authentic, intentional, and respectful. And so for the remaining of this webinar, I invite you into your red chair. But that was not it. As I was going through my certification, I started going to the barn with our youngest daughter, who has a horse. And I really started to notice the impact of the relationship of her horse on her. And I had another bubbling up, another intuitive hit that perhaps horses had a role to play in coaching. And I did some research and learned that, lo and behold, coaching with horses is a thing, and there were ways to get certified in that process. And so before I even started my certification, I bought a horse. And here you see one of the first pictures of Annie and I. It was a very intuitive, some would say impulsive purchase. And yet not once did I ever doubt that I needed to do this. I'd never had a horse before. There was lots that I needed to learn about having a horse. And one thing I know absolutely 100% for sure is that Annie and I were meant to partner up. So later on, after I bought Annie, a few months later, I found myself in Colorado. And I had 7 intensive days, which was the beginning of my equine facilitated learning and coaching certification. And it was the start of a year-long process of really getting to know myself again, figuring out how to release some energy and emotions that I had stuck inside of me so that I could truly do the work that I felt like I was being called to do. And so I committed to the year-long certification, and my life has never been the same since. And during that certification year, I ended up doing a visioning exercise with a fellow coach. And what I envisioned was Red Chair Ranch. And what I realized what I wanted to do was create a physical red chair space, particularly where people could come and experience coaching with horses. And so at the start of the pandemic, my husband and I left suburbia of 20 plus years and moved to a beautiful acreage about 45 minutes from downtown Winnipeg to create Red Chair Ranch, where horses help humans discover. And here's a picture of me coaching one of my clients with Annie in our round pen. And as you can see, it is a beautiful, mature property, and it has beautiful, warm, and inviting energy that people tell me over and over again that they experience when they're here. I'm really excited today about 3 guests that are joining me for my webinar. You're going to hear from Joy Lowen, CEO of the National Screen Institute, Barbara Balsha-Dow, who is a manager within the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority, and Elaine Banfield, who's an internationally recognized certified dressage coach, judge, and competitor. Each of them has spent time in their red chair and have spent time with my herd and I at Red Chair Ranch. So I'm looking forward to them sharing their stories with you. And of course, you'll have a voice later on in the webinar in the live Q&A. So before I introduce my first guest, I'm excited to share with you the premiere of this beautiful video that shows you Red Chair Ranch, introduces you to my herd, and gives you a bit of a sneak peek of what you could experience when you come to Red Chair Ranch. Yes. I'm Shannon Lepke, and I am a professional leadership coach. I partner with women to help them use their gifts and talents with clarity and confidence. We are at Red Chair Ranch near Birds Hill, Manitoba, and it is our home and also our workplace. My husband and I moved here a couple of years ago to create this space so people could come and experience coaching with horses. And so behind me are 2 of my expert coaches, Annie and Jack, and as you can see, they're enjoying their hay today in this beautiful day. I partner with professional women who are seeking clarity on perhaps what their next step is. They may have started a new role and want to explore how to do that really well and have some support along the way. Some women come to me because they're experiencing a lot of change in their workplace and they're trying to figure out how to navigate it. Often when you come to Red Chair Ranch, you find yourself starting in one of these red chairs. And as we sit around the circle, we share a bit about ourselves and our story and what it is that we want to explore about ourselves that day with the horses. And these chairs, as solid and strong as they are, provide a really safe space for us to do that. There you go, good girl. So this is one of our round pens, and I call this one Annie's office. This is where Annie does most of her coaching. So when people come here and let's say they connect with Annie, they would find themselves in this round pen with Annie at liberty, which means she doesn't have a halter on her, and I'm on the outside of the round pen. As you come in here with an intention and a desire of what you want to explore and how you want to connect with her, what emerges, emerges. When I partner with individuals and small groups, we work really hard at creating the safe and trusted space of Red Chair. And to do that, we decide that we're going to come and reflect, embrace, and decide and take action. And when we're sitting in our red chair, we're courageously curious and we choose to be honest and really take an inward look at who we are, who we want to be, and the impact that we want to have in the world. And so that's the work that I do one-on-one with women and in small groups here at Red Chair Ranch. Good girl. People can reach me through email at shannon@redchaircoaching.com, and they can also explore more about my story and my offerings on my website, which is redchaircoaching.com. All right, there you have a sense of Red Chair Ranch and some of the spaces that you might experience when you're here. It's really cool to see that video because it's been a lot of work to get where we are today. And I'm really excited to share with you in a few moments some stories of what people have experienced when they were here. Before that, I want to just talk a little bit about my team. And you saw Annie and Jack. So Annie is my purebred Arabian, my first horse. I believe that Annie knew before I did that she was going to be a coach. And she is an incredibly perceptive horse who has helped a number of women and men get out of their heads and into their bodies to find the wisdom that's there. Jack is my gelding. He and I paired up about a year after Annie and I. Jack is a retired drill horse. So he was a performer and traveled and won ribbons. And he was looking for his next gig. And I was very fortunate that Jack was gifted to me. He spent some time observing Annie in her work and then started to see what his role as coach. Jack has really big, warm energy, has supported a lot of women and some men in their journeys. And I'm really excited about what's coming up this year for him because I know he's going to do more good work. And then there's Blaze, the horse that started it all. Blaze is a beautiful chestnut quarter horse who did some amazing work this fall in my retreats and really helped some women feel what they needed to feel so that they could move on in life and in their roles as professionals. So why is the space of Red Chair so important? One thing that I know is that when I was at my best as a leader, leading individuals and teams, was when I knew myself, I trusted myself, I had confidence in myself. And there's so many things in our environment that can shake that for us. And so to know my strengths, to know my purpose and intention was really, really important and still is. And what I know to be true is that the invitation of the Red Chair invites individuals to do that work. Ways that women can engage in their Red Chair are through one-on-one coaching. I have a Red Chair series, which I now do virtually, and I have an intensive Red Chair leadership immersion program that over and over again proves to me, helps women really see who they are and to really get clarity for the next phase of their leadership journey. And then, of course, when we add horses to the mix at Red Chair Ranch, it's amazing what can happen. They provide this beautiful mirror for us to see ourselves as we are and provide this beautiful, neutral, non-judgment space for us to claim our true selves and to move forward with a lot more confidence and grace. And the work that I've been able to do so far at Red Chair Ranch with my herd has been incredibly humbling to be a part of. So on that note, I'm excited that Joy was able to take some time today to join me, and I would like to invite her up on the screen. Hello, Joy.
Hello to you, Shannon. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Very good. I put a jacket on today because it's just so frighteningly cold, but
I know.
We're all in this together.
I know. Soon it'll warm up. Oh, well. Oh, thanks for being with me today. That means a lot to me.
Well, thank you for asking. That means a lot to me, actually.
Oh, well, good. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about you and why you choose to lead? Because you truly are a leader.
about me. My name is Joy. I am currently the CEO at the National Screen Institute, which is a not-for-profit based here in Winnipeg, and we train professional storytellers. We train the producers, writers, and directors who are sharing their stories on screens here in Canada and around the world.
Beautiful, beautiful. Those who know you, Joy, know that you are a beautiful soul. And those who are getting to know you through this webinar, I think, are probably figuring that out pretty quickly. So it's a privilege to be in the same circle as you. I'm wondering if you can share a little bit with the listeners about why it's important for you to take time for yourself and kind of reflect on who you are as a leader and what that does for you.
I did get to see a bit of your video, and you nailed it when you said that, it's when you know your authentic self, that's when you truly can lead. And as I won't, kid anyone, it's not that I know who my authentic self is in all its complexities and beauty. But I know enough to know that, I would like to lead. And that knowledge, that desire, that's just a beating pulse in me is what gives me the confidence to want to lead, and being asked to lead as well too. But it really does stem from an inner confidence that comes with time out.
Thank you for sharing that. It's really interesting to me what happens when we're prepared to go inside. And sometimes that can be really scary because we don't necessarily want to know what's there. And yet there's such beauty there if we have the courage to do that. And for me, that's one of the things that differentiates Red Chair from other programs is it really encourages people to look at the heart and the head.
Yeah.
I know the listeners are probably really curious about the horses, and you've had a few different experiences with my herd. We did
your secret sauce.
My secret sauce, yes. So you spent some time with Annie, and then you came to the one of my one-day retreats. So wondering what you feel comfortable sharing about your visits to Red Chair Ranch and your interactions with the herd.
Just a beautiful release. What I would say to start is that I discovered things about myself, about pushing boundaries. I'm one of those that I'm fearful of horses. I'm not naturally comfortable around them. They're so big. But they're beautiful animals. They're beautiful beings, right? And I trusted you. I mean, we'd had enough sessions together. It's both that, I'm attracted to it, but I'm scared by it. So, this was being in a leadership program that, and I trust there was enough about what you had in your materials that really about the horses that really attracted me. Like I was really curious. And it's again, that intuition there, that intuitive self that drew me. And so, and it was enough to assuage the fear. And I did it in increments, right? Like I said, we'd had enough online sessions before this summer came out. And I was full. You remember that day I came in to see the cloud in my face. I was frazzled. I was really worried about some work stuff. And and I got there and you just walked me around the grounds. And long story short, I chose Annie that day. And
she chose you, actually.
Annie chose me. Annie chose me.
Yes, I remember. I can still hear that strong, confident voice come out from you as she circled you around the round pen in her beautiful gait that she has.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah.
It was a beautiful moment. And then I remember it started to rain as you finished in the round pen.
Which for me in the islands is a sign of blessing. Those are the tears from heaven and it was just a gentle rain. A gentle shower. So
yeah. Yeah, it was a remarkable morning. And with the rain and everything else, it reminded me that while people come to interact with the horses, there's this whole ecosystem around us as well. That's part of the process, which can provide such insight and beauty. I think we're almost at time, but I'm wondering if you can quickly share, we could go on and on. If you could quickly share a little bit about what Jack taught you when you were here in September.
Oh, it was humbling. And what he told me was to put aside like to put aside my ego
Hmm.
and persevere, because he was not moving for me. And at one point, remember, he ran into the twice. He ran into this,
Yes,
and I was so ashamed and humiliated. And then he came out. I did coax him to come out,
you did.
and then we danced together. And because of, like, and so it wasn't a wash. And again, the takeaway from Jack is, you know what, if at first you don't succeed, try again, try a different way. And then, yeah, that was exhilarating too. He was a harder one for me, but yeah, what a
Yeah,
great.
that was beautiful. Beautiful. Well, we could talk for a long time, but I need to keep going. And I really want to thank you for sharing what you did and bringing your authentic self onto the webinar today. So thanks, Joy.
Shannon, thank you for asking. Thank you for doing what you do. You really are helping to create a community of female leaders, strong female leaders.
Thanks, Joy.
All the best.
Thanks. All right. Well, hopefully that gave you a little bit more of a sense of what happens when you can come to Red Chair Ranch. And before I bring on my next guest, Barbara, I want to share a little bit more about the space of Red Chair. So why is Red Chair important for me, and I believe for others, and I think you heard that from Joy just now, is I really wanted to provide a safe place, particularly for women, to reflect on themselves, to feel comfortable going inside and seeing what's there, to find their confidence and find their voice so that they can really influence and lead as they're meant to. Because I believe that the world needs all of us to show up in our full strength, in all of our character, and to have the impact that we are intended to have. And when we know who we are, when we know our strengths, when we have clear intentions, it's amazing what can happen. And again, Red Chair does that for people. And part of the reason I believe that that happens is because when we come together in our Red Chair, whether it was Joy and I one-on-one or a group in our Red Chairs, whether online or at the ranch here, is we really honor the values of being courageously curious, about being honest with ourselves and with other people, to really doing that work to be that authentic person, to choosing to be really intentional about our actions and what we want to do in our life, and to be really respectful, self-respect, as well as respect for each other. And then, of course, our larger ecosystem in nature, because there's a lot that we can learn from that. I'm excited to bring on my next guest. Barbara and I have done a fair bit of work together and are also starting to partner together in some ways. So I'm really curious to hear what she wants to share today. And I think she is coming on.
Can you
Hey,
hear me?
Barbara.
Hello,
I
how are
can.
you?
Good. How are you? Welcome.
Good, yeah.
So, Barbara, you've got a challenging role in a challenging circumstance right now. I want to know if you could share a little bit with the listeners about why you choose to lead and perhaps a little bit about the environment in which you're doing that right now.
For sure. I think it's always good to start is that I've been a social worker a long time. I'm almost 30 years now. And then I reflect back, I like to let people know that a little bit because it kind of sets you where I'm sometimes coming from. I've had child welfare experience and areas of disability, and eventually moved into a supervisory position in family services, and then moved over to the WRHA in the home care positions. It's been a stressful, busy time with so much unknown. It's required us to be flexible. I think the word is pivot constantly, even fear around PPE or even the virus itself and how it's been changing. So, yeah, and I think it's continued to reflect for me why I'm here is that I have amazing staff, and I want to continue through that or through my whole career as a leader, encouraging them to be their best no matter what, and that we have to continue to show up and be there so that we can make a system continue to work.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it always, don't take this the wrong way. It always amazes me when, you know, you come to the ranch or we have a call like over the last 2 years. You've got incredible fortitude and strength to be in that environment every day and do what you do. And, you know, you're always so optimistic and positive. And I really believe that there's something special about you and your heart in regards to that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've spent a fair bit of time with the horses throughout the last couple of years as well. And I'm going to leave this really wide open because I know there's a lot that you could likely share.
Yeah.
So I'm going to open it up and ask you to share what you feel led to share today about your interactions with Annie and Jack and the rest of the herd and being at Red Chair Ranch.
You know, Shannon, we've kind of journeyed together over the couple of years too. So we even met before Red Chair and even before the pandemic. And I think I just have always admired you and admired your presentation and what you're working. And I followed you into the coaching world. But then the pandemic kind of arrived, and I followed you into the purchase of the horse and then the ranch. And I knew that I was getting tired and I was losing sight of what my leadership skills were. And so I asked if I could spend some time with you, and you just led me right into identifying what my skills were. What did I fall on when I was in crisis? And then that leads my time with Annie, where where do I start with that? I don't know if I knew what I was going to be doing except walking around. And if I can describe the round pin, and I was drawn to Annie to work with her, or she called me. And I think she literally called me over because Jack ignored me. And Annie was calling out and circling, and she began to circle, I think, quite assertively in the pen. And I think when I paused and reflected on that, I realized that what that felt like, to what was turning for me was that's how I felt when I was entering in all those difficult conversations that I was having with my teams around the pandemic, around expectations, and that's how they almost presented, and I was reacting, and there was this whole tension being created between that and her running. And she was calling out for help.
Just for the listeners' benefit, you were on the outside of the round pen while she was doing that. Yeah.
Just watching her, thinking, what am I doing? That this horse, and I can't do this. This horse is circling. And I was a little bit afraid, but more just like, wow, what's going on that I'm showing up like this and she's circling assertively around the pen. But then we called me over and you said, let's just pause for a moment. And you walked me through an exercise where I started to breathe again and brought my heart rate down, and Annie calmed down. And I was like, wow, this works. And Annie came up behind me and almost invited me into the pen at that point. And I joined her in the pen, and we kind of looked at each other, and I patted her, and I don't have any fears of the horses, and we just stood together, and eventually you said, why didn't you lead her around? And I was really excited, and she let me lead her a little bit, but as I walked around, I just released everything, all those emotions. You are strong, you are brave, you have strength, you can do this. That's as we walked around. And then we reversed it as well. And then Annie paused, and you invited me to put my hands on her, but then I just stood and breathed. And I think I tell people that story is that I think that's the first time I get emotional about that. I think it's the first time I've really breathed in the last 5 years, and without any other thing than just breathing, silence, peace in my inside. And so I use that moment often to calm, and before I go into meetings, I think of that time with her in that breath, in that moment. And it's given me lots of strength and clarity with that.
Yeah, she's so amazing. She's so wise.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for her. Oh, thanks so much, Barbara. I really appreciate you sharing those vulnerable stories and joining me today. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks again.
Great. Yeah. See you soon. Okay. Well, hopefully you are getting a bit of a sense of what can happen when you come to Red Chair Ranch. And so before Elaine comes on to chat a bit about what makes horses such great coaches, I want to share a little bit about what I have learned over the last few years and what's been demonstrated to me over and over again. And horses, as most of you probably know, are prey animals. And because they're prey animals, they live in their bodies 100% of the time. They sense energy around them 100% of the time. They have to so that they can be safe. And one of the things about horses is that their energy bubbles are permeable, which allows them to sense energy from other beings around them. I do believe that here in North America, a lot of us have done our darndest to close our energy bubbles, and we're really not that aware of what's going on around us. But horses do. And because they're always present in their body, because they can sense energy, when we're with them, they sense our energy, and our energy is our emotions. And for me, they provide a whole other level of emotional intelligence training experience because they invite us to really engage with our emotions and the gifts that our emotions give us. One of the other things I think that make horses such great coaches is there's no judgment. They don't have language. They sense energy, they respond to it, and they go back to grazing. They don't hold grudges. They do what needs to be done, and they go back to grazing. So when they're with us, they provide this beautiful mirror. And from there, we can learn a lot about ourselves. And so to help me talk about it a little bit more is Elaine Banfield. And I'm really excited that Elaine could join me today. Hi, Elaine.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you today?
Good. Elaine, I remember the day when I was at my laptop and I was on a call with my coach, and I saw an email come in from Elaine Banfield, and the title was my pop-up retreat in October. And I opened it up, and you said you wanted to come to my retreat, and I was like, what? Elaine wants to come to my retreat? So for those people who don't know you, you have years and years of experience on the backs of horses. And so I'm really honored to be in the circle with you. And I wanted to know if you could share a little bit with the listeners about your experience with horses and maybe how they've impacted you and why they're important to you.
Well, I guess I could start with that. I've been working in the horse industry professionally for 42 years. And I started with horses more as a hobby, as a young girl. And the horses for me were an outlet initially. They were my passion. I remember when I started my passion for horses, I remember I was at Riding Mountain National Park. I was 4 years old, and we went to the riding stable, and my uncle said, I looked with my grandmother and my uncle, and he said, do you want to go for a ride? And I'm, no, they looked too big. They were too scary. But I went and sat on the fence beside a horse who was standing in his paddock with his head and neck over the fence. And I sat on the fence rail and I looked at him and I went, oh my gosh, these horses, these animals are so deep. I felt drawn right into his eye, into his soul, into his being. And ever since then, it's been just an addiction to be around them. So I started working with horses professionally. I went to equestrian college. I trained in England and France. I've trained in Brazil. I've trained, ridden, competed, or judged in Brazil, France, England, lots of places in North America. And it is my profession, but it's more than that to me. The horses, they're my partners. They're my partners in the dance that I do. We think of dressage as an art form where your horse partners with you and becomes your dance partner through that mutual connection, and there's harmony and this amazing feeling that a horse can give you when you connect with them that way. And I feel that in training horses and competing on horses, the horses that give you the most are when you connect with them and understand them as well as them understanding you. What's so cool about a horse, really in a natural state, where like at Red Chair Ranch, they don't care what you know, they don't care what you've done. They care who you are. And
That's beautiful.
yeah, and it really that's what I think makes the difference between who we are in our lives, where we put on what we feel we need to be accepted and to be something, and to we build a character somewhat that's perhaps not the real us, but the horses, they find that authentic self from you. You have to be authentic in being with them, or they just don't really want to acknowledge you if you're not being authentic.
Yeah.
They don't want anything to do with you, right?
Yeah.
So they help us to reconnect with ourselves and to find your groundedness and your reality, and it's sort of everything else you have to let go in your world and just go, oh, here I am, and this is who I am. And that's, to me, the biggest thing that the horses bring out in you.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thanks for sharing that, Elaine.
No, you're
Yeah,
welcome.
and this is who we are, and that's enough, right? That's the other piece.
And by being who we are, I think that's a life lesson that we can take forwards into the rest of our lives. Is that's where we would truly, really be accepted by other people, is by being authentically yourself and knowing yourself and being yourself, and then people recognize that in you, and then they feel more comfortable with you because then they can be themselves. And
Exactly.
I think it draws that mutual awareness of authenticity instead of our work world and our successes and our who we think we need to be. And again, the horses, we don't care about that.
Nope.
They care about who we really are, right?
Yeah, and when they're 1,000+ pounds,
yes,
what you think matters.
right. Exactly.
I'm being cued for us to close off soon, but I'm wondering if there's anything that you would feel comfortable sharing about your experience at the retreat.
Yes. Okay. What I felt, Shannon, because I've been to a few of these courses, because I was very curious about how people are doing these courses, because I love that connection with the horses, and I've always thought I want to go this direction somehow. So I've been to several courses that offer equine assisted personal development and things like that. What I found, Shannon, different at your Red Chair Ranch was it was way more organic, way more grounded, way more chill and soft and inviting. If I could put it in a nutshell, that's the words I would use, as opposed to some of the other courses I've taken where they are doing the same sort of thing.
I'm feel really fortunate that our paths have crossed. It's been an interesting journey so far. So thanks a lot for coming on today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. All right. Okay, earlier in the webinar, I invited you into your red chair. You've heard some interesting stories about my horses, about interactions they've had with women, and about the space of red chair. What I'm curious about for you is what has come up for you as you've listened to the webinar. What might you feel you want to do about it? And how could some time in your red chair and with my herd and I be helpful for you now? There's different ways that you can be in your red chair and engage at Red Chair Ranch. There will be a one-day retreat the Reflect and Renew retreat that's coming up starting end of May, as well as a 2-day retreat. Or you may feel like you want to spend some one-on-one time with my herd and I really encourage you to go on my website to look at those options. I also have an online course that will be coming out soon, and you'll get more information on that in a follow-up email. Today wouldn't have been possible without a lot of wonderful people and great horses. So I want to do a shout out and a thank you to my guests, Joy, Barbara, and Elaine. And of course, my horses, Annie, Jack, and Blaze. And to Sound Strategy for working with me to produce this webinar. And of course, you who will be asking some questions in just a minute as we engage further about Red Chair and Red Chair Ranch. The recording will be available soon. As I said, you'll get an email from Sound Strategy soon. And now we're going to move into the live Q&A. All right, and I hope that you're getting a great idea of what can happen here when you come to Red Chair Ranch. And Pam and Lisa in particular, thanks for your comments along the way. It takes a lot of courage for Joy and Barbara to share what they've done. Someone's asked a question about what is the biggest takeaway that people get from their interactions with Jack, Annie, and Blaze? That's a big question. And I think if I want to generalize it, the big takeaway is often, and it looks differently, for people to feel comfortable acknowledging something that's happening inside of them, acknowledging what that is, whether it's fear, doubt, grief, sadness, curiosity, and exploring that and figuring out what that's telling them on that day when they're here, and therefore how does that translate into what they want to do after they leave Red Chair Ranch. And I know that's a real general thing because it is really specific for each individual, but really it is, and I do this a lot now that I work with the horses, it's what is going on inside of us. And this is from somebody who was in her head a lot. As an executive doing a lot of senior leadership work, I had to think about strategy. I had to think about execution. And I did trust my gut for sure. But since I've left that role and I have focused on more so on the work with the horses, they have shown me the wisdom that is inside of us. And so that's been really, really powerful for myself and for a lot of other people. Hi, Gail. Thanks a lot for being on today. And Pam, you mentioned that Joy said she was afraid of the horses, and you were a little bit too when you came for the retreat. Good question. How do you conquer the fear and still make a connection to grow? I think what comes up for me when I see that question, it's a good question. The horses know if we're afraid. And what they want us to know is if we are acknowledging our fear. And I have seen probably every one of the horses, Jack, Annie, or Blaze, be really soft and inviting for people that are a little hesitant. And they make it really safe to be with them. And I have had a number of people come and say, I'm really scared of horses, and you're going to ask me to go in that round pen with them, and you're not going to be in there with me. And I'm like, yep, that's how it's going to work. And there's processes, right, that I take you through before to kind of explore that fear as well. And it's interesting. I don't think I've had one person yet who hasn't been in there, having walked in with some fear, and by the time they're finished their interaction with their horse, is realizing that fear is gone and saying, I'm standing beside this horse and I feel safe, which is really cool. And so imagine how that can translate into our life, personal or professional. So really, really good question. Gail, you're asking, how do the horses communicate to the person that is with them? Yeah, good question. They do it in different ways. Sometimes it can be very evident. So I have seen horses nudge people on a certain part of their body, and usually it's on a chakra. So it could be their solar plexus, it could be their head. And so usually that is a cue of what we might want to explore. And sometimes the horses will do things like lay down and roll in front of the client. And I've seen Annie do that more than once. And that can be a really significant behavior from the horse that we want to explore. Horses don't get down and roll and be on their backs unless they feel safe with the person that they are. And so that can translate into a whole bunch of different things. And, you know, it's interesting, Gail, because I have coached with one of my horses before when I don't feel like anything is going on because the horse is standing quietly, the person is standing quietly, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, like they're not getting what they need from this experience. And then I'll check in with them and I'll say, so what's happening for you right now? And it's like, whoa, there's all this great stuff happening, this processing. And it's hard to explain sometimes. It's this interaction at this energetic level between the horse and the human. And what I'm learning as I continue to do this work, that the horses are sensing stuff within us, within the client, at an energetic level that I can't pick up on as a two-legged. And so I have learned not to judge how a session is going or an experience is going based on what I observe. Because sometimes it can be very demonstrative, like one of Barbara's stories. And sometimes it looks like there's nothing happening. And yet there's some really powerful stuff going on. Okay, RJ Wool, what is your biggest takeaway and what do the horses teach you? Well, yeah. Yeah, there's lots that I could answer. You're asking for my biggest. I think my biggest takeaway is that I am one being in a very large ecosystem that is all connected. And so that's one. And that really gives me a sense of humility for this work and for my role in life. And helps me go into this work with what I call humble confidence, or at least I try to. I think the other biggest takeaway is that there is so much information that we store in our bodies, energetically and physically, that we don't access, especially in North America, because we're very much in our heads. We think through everything. And don't get me wrong, it's not that I don't think we should be thinking. What I have come to learn through this work and continue to is that there is so much wisdom that is stored in our bodies that we do not access. And so one of the processes that I learned through my certification is the mind-body method of coaching, which is what I use when people come to work with the horses. And it really helps us go inside to notice what we're feeling, to explore the emotion that's associated with it. And what's that information providing us? And then how does that help us provide clarity for how we go through life? Lisa, what is the best way we can help promote Red Chair Ranch? Well, thanks for asking the question. Yeah, I would be to point people to my website, redchaircoaching.com, perhaps to let them know that this free webinar is available. And of course, they can contact me at any time to have a conversation about what that is. And Gail, you're asking, do you work with people who have anxiety and depression? That's a bit of a complicated answer in that, yes, I would say that I do. But I don't do it from a therapeutic perspective. So on that note, sometimes people will say to me, oh, you do therapy with horses. And I'll say, no, I do coaching with horses. But the process of coaching with horses is often therapeutic. And so the way that I differentiate for people is that coaching is really about looking forward. And while we may look back or inward to say what has happened in us that has got us to where we are today, it's for the purpose of moving forward. So if the individual is able to recognize perhaps a false voice or to explore a life event that has happened and is able to move through it and past it to make some conscious choices about what they want to do going forward, that is coaching. If the individual is stuck and they can't seem to get past that anxiety or that depression, then I would refer them to someone with training in that area that would be in the realm of therapy. So I do believe that some of the people that have come to work with me have experienced anxiety and depression, and it has been helpful for them for sure. And one of the tools that I use, which I learned through my certification, is a chart called the scale of emotions that has depression and anxiety in there. And what it does is it helps us explore that as an emotion. And so what is that telling us? And how can we work through it to get to that another emotion that's perhaps a little bit more expansive so that we can embrace more of life? So hopefully that answers your question, Gail. Thanks for asking it. All right, I think it is time to wrap up. And from my heart, I want to say thank you for joining me today. Whether you join me live, it's a Friday, it's sunny outside in Manitoba, and you chose to be inside and watch this. So thank you. Thank you to those who are watching the recording. If I didn't answer your question, or if you have one you didn't ask, please feel free to reach out to me. The recording will be out soon, and I hope to see you soon in your red chair.